I think that one of the most remarkable aspects of a hackathon is whether this is your first 10th or 50th event. There is always something to take away from it. Our speaker now is Michael Englo, who is a recent graduate from the University of British Columbia in Canada and a co-founder of Kotakode. He founded Kotakode right after university with his high school and college classmate Peter Tanugraha. Michael has an experience as an undergraduate teaching assistant at the University of British Columbia, at Google, and as a software engineer at Optimal Efficiency, a Canada-based software firm. He also happens to be a seasoned hackathon expert himself, and will be sharing with you some strategies on taking part in a hackathon. This is definitely an event that you don't want to miss, especially if you're a beginner at these types of events. Michael, this floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for the very good introduction of me. I'm very flattered. But yeah, I guess we can get started. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So, sorry, I started in the wrong slide. Let me start from the beginning. Oh, so yeah. Welcome to Virtual Hacking 101 workshop. This is a workshop that we help to help, I guess, mostly beginner developers or beginner hackers. But I really believe that seasoned hackers can also benefit from this. So without further ado, let's get started. Just a bit of introduction about myself. As Brian has mentioned, my name is Michael Englo. I was born and raised in Pekanbaru, Riau. So shout out to Pekanbaru, Riau peeps. I'm a co-founder at Kotakode, and I graduated recently from UBC in 2020. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of hackathons. I've been to over 10 plus hackathons as far as I can remember since 2016. And I've won. I was lucky enough to have won at least a prize on half of them. So yeah. So let me just give you a bit of introduction to the state of hackathons right now around the world. So there's about 40% increase in hackathons organized in 2018 than 2016, according to hackathon.com, which means that a lot of hackathons have been gaining a lot of traction and a lot of popularity among tech enthusiasts. And it's been like the word hackathon has been basically becoming a household words for, especially for people in the tech industry. So what is hacking really? A lot of people in Hollywood, they picture hacking as this kind of activity of basically trying to go pass through the barrier, the security barrier of companies and stuff like that, and trying to steal user information or just doing malicious stuff. But then the correct terminology for that is actually cracking. Hacking is actually a broader term. Hacking means making something, I guess just basically, it all comes down to just making stuff or trying to build stuff in a short period of time to see if something's possible. That's what the real definition of hacking is. Again, there's a lot of definition of what hacking means, but I guess to put it in a formal terms, my own definition of hacking is, it is a prototyping, a quick and dirty solution to a problem to see if it's worthwhile to invest more resources to implement a more stable and properly implement the solution. What this means is, normally hacking means it's very close to prototyping, but we care less about how the code is structured, how maintainable that is. We want it to just, implement it for the sake of making it possible. We want to see if something is actually feasible to begin with. So that's what hacking means at least to me. And it's pretty accurate. If I ask a lot of my fellow hackers as well. So yeah. So the question is, why hacking over a weekend night out? I mean, you guys decided to join this hackathon rather than hanging out with your friends over a weekend. And so, what is the really the goal of hackathon? What can you get out of this hackathon? Well, there are typically a few goals in hackers' mind when they consider joining a hackathon. And the most common one is to learn and experiment with new technologies. So if you want to start learning about AI, machine learning, or building AR, VR, or blockchain, or anything, basically just getting started learning about new technologies, you would start from hackathon because that's the easiest way to actually bootstrap a project and use like new technologies. The second one, the second most common one would be competing and win prizes. It's a satisfaction in its own to actually build something over a weekend, over 24 hours, through sweat and tears, building something, and actually get rewarded from it, being acknowledged of that work. And so a lot of people actually go and compete for and win, try to win prizes. Not only the main prize, but also the sponsored prize. So yeah, the third one would be to pursue startup or business ideas. Everyone that I talk to, a lot of them, they already have some ideas in mind before they actually come into hackathons. Although some hackathons do have some restriction on the type of ideas that they allow to be considered in the competition, I guess. But most hackathons don't limit hack ideas. They basically just give you categories and see where it fits. And so this is a very good opportunity for hackers to actually test out their ideas before actually pursuing them further. Networking with people in the industry. There's a lot of companies, sponsors, like ones in Garuda Hacks. They're really, really hungry to find talents to further boost their powerhouse in their at their own companies. And hackathons are basically the nest of really, really talented, smart people that can help them accomplish those goals. And so that's why people are like a lot of sponsors are actually racing to actually competing to actually be able to sponsor hackathons like this. And last but not least, normally free food. Unfortunately, this is a virtual hackathon, so we might not have free food this time. But just a heads up, if you do want to go to like later on in physical hackathons, normally they would give you free food, and that always excites me the most. That's probably the only reason why I'm on hackathons, to be honest. Anyways, so this is again, even though I've been going to a lot of hackathons myself, every hackathon I still learn new things. But here are just a few tips from personal tips that I have to be able to succeed at hackathons, especially this hackathon as well. I know the team formation session has already ended, but I guess this can be an information for future hacks, or even if you haven't found your teammates or teams, this can be very beneficial for you. So the question is, should I form a team before the hackathon or during the hackathon? This is a really good question because depending on your goal, you would choose different ways of forming a team, choosing what time to actually form a team. If you choose to form teams before the hackathon starts, then the benefit would be, you get to pick your own work with close friends or coworkers who knows you works well with you. You know how they work, and you know how to communicate with them. So it becomes really, really efficient, and also it becomes a lot more fun as well because you get to work with your own team members, and you know them, you know them best. You can also discuss about hack ideas even before the hackathon starts. So you might have some plans to build something, and you've already pre-planned it even before joining the hackathon. Whereas for forming teams after or during hackathons, the benefit of it is it lets you work with other hackers that you've never been met before. It gives you that exposure, diversity in working with other people, and also, who knows, you get to actually might actually meet your future co-founders for your own startup at hackathons, and that actually is a very, very common thing. Also, you can gain experience and also new connections by working, with other people. The good thing about hackathon is you basically get together with a team, and you are forced to basically work with them for 24 hours or 36 hours in this case. And from that, there's no way you don't build meaningful relationship with them. And so this is a good way for you to basically build your own connections, actually organic connections, and they can actually witness what you are capable of as well. So yeah. Second thing is recruiting team members. So how do you recruit team members? And what is a good team size? So this is again, different people have different opinions about this, but I found that generally speaking, if you have too many people in the team, it will result in slowdown due to communication overhead and task conflicts. So it's really hard to divide tasks because you have only so many work to do, or at least components to work on, and it's really hard to just dissect who's working on what, and also the communication overhead would be a lot higher. Also, too few people result in lack of manpower. You basically don't have enough people to actually finish your project. So what would be a good team size? I would recommend maybe ideally 3 to 5 or 4 to 5, but maximum I think would be 6, because more than that, it will be, again, the communication overhead will take over. I would rather split the 7 people in the team into two teams, and that way it's more efficient as well. So hack idea generation. So some of you have already come up with ideas before joining hackathons, but maybe some of you are still in the idea generation phase. So here are the tips for your hack idea generation. I would probably be able, I think it's hack idea generation can be categorized into 2 types. So one is problem driven. This is where you pick a problem first. Normally it would be the sponsor's problems statement, or maybe the hackathon problem statement themselves, and you try to find the solution to it. And this is the typical way to actually find to actually compete in hackathons if you do actually want to participate and win prizes, because you're essentially honing into a problem, and you find a solution around it rather than the other way around. And this gives you a better chance to actually win because you have a target. Another one would be solution driven. It should be solution driven, not driver. But yeah, solution driven means like when you are just about to try new technologies. I want to learn how to build a game using Unity. That would be a fair place to come from. And there's a lot of pros as well. One of them, it would be, there's a lot to learn because you get to learn new things, new technologies. You can put stuff on your resume as well, and you can experiment with cool new frameworks that you've never done before. And yeah, again, you will learn something new by the end of the hackathon, so you will be productive in that. The cons of it is also lots to learn, meaning there's a lot of steep learning curve in learning new frameworks and technologies. So it's really hard for you to actually, budget your time and actually finish the project because you have never used that tool before. You can't estimate how comfortable you are with working with that tool. So yeah, but those are the two. And here is, I would say, if anything, this would be like the most useful tip, at least for me, for hackathon. I would say this is like the top one for tip for hackathon, which is to simplify your hack ideas. Hacker tends to overestimate their capacity. They imagine a lot of things. Like, what if I can implement an Uber app over weekend, and or make an Airbnb over weekend, replicate them. So as you can see, it is sometimes it is possible, but again, depending on your manpower and hackathon, the duration of hackathon is very short. So you can't, even though you might have the capability to do it, but you might not have the capacity to do it over 36-hour period. So here are the stats. Almost less than 50% of hackathon projects never actually get finished because of the overestimation by a lot of hackers. A better way would be to just finish a simple but working prototype than just go fancy but unfinished. At least if you have a simple but working prototype, you have a chance to win. But if you go fancy but unfinished, then there's no chance to win. So yeah, again, it's an easy tip to actually bring back a prize because, as I mentioned, your competition now from 100% is limited to just 50% on those who actually submit their projects. Always start with a minimum viable product. State your problem and come up with a solution, and just one solution. You only want to solve one problem and one problem only. You want to start, at least you want to start from there. If you want to build stuff on top of it, you can, but always aim to actually finish something first. Come up with a minimum viable product so you can at least demo it if things doesn't work out. Another question would be, do you sometimes apps, like especially if you're here to build apps like web apps or mobile apps, sometimes you don't actually need server. So all your effort can actually be focused on just one thing, which is to build the app. And not all apps are backed by server. A lot of apps actually in hackathons, they don't actually rely on server. They're actually, sometimes in production, they might actually need a server to make it more efficient. But for the purpose of hackathons, you may actually want to consider just putting everything in the app, as in, you build your database on the client side, on the mobile app, the mobile storage or the browser storage. That would be more efficient. So you can skip the server altogether. Because again, what matters most is the idea of the project and the demo rather than the actual proper implementation. Another one would be to mock everything first. So I would say try to just start with mocking the screens first. This lets you establish and consolidate prototype ideas. So you basically kind of like freeze the idea and see the concept visually rather than being just in your head. And it's easier for you to communicate the ideas as well. And also it's easier for you to let other judges or people who are seeing your project to actually understand what you're trying to build. Yeah, so I would say start with mocking everything first, just hard code everything, and then slowly replace hard coded static data into dynamic. So that's when you start replacing the static screens into actually working prototype. So how to actually get a working prototype done by the end of the 36-hour mark. Again, one of the most important tip would be to actually maximize your mentor time. Use help from mentors. Again, mentors are, they're lonely people and they need your attention. So they do actually want you to ask questions to them. That's why they are there. That's why they signed up for being a mentor in a hackathon, because they want to help out people like you to build your next big idea. Also, this is also a more organic way to network with industry experts. Sometimes if you do things like, say, for example, coffee chats, sometimes it can be very, how do you say, it might not be as natural to some people because you're specifically talking, because people may think that you have an intention behind why you're meeting them. But during hackathon, it lets you ask questions and show how much how capable you are to your industry experts by actually having more natural conversations and by asking questions to them. I actually, for me myself, I have been using helps from mentors throughout all my hackathons, and until now, at least in every hackathon, I have one person, one mentor who I still have built relationships with them, and they actually help me, with my career progress. So yeah, that's one. That's what I would say you should probably do also by the end of the hackathon, is to basically find a mentor and build relationship with them, long-lasting relationship, that is. And try to use common hack tools. Again, depending on your goals, if you want to use this hackathon to learn and totally new, bizarre hackathon tools or frameworks, then go for it. But if you actually just want to finish your prototype, I would say use most commonly used hacking tools. This lets lets mentors help you, because there are more mentors who can actually help you because they are also familiar with this kind of tools. If this is your first time in a hackathon and you can't decide where should I start, let me choose for you. I might be biased a little bit on those technology, but that's not my point. I just this is more for just to help you get started and actually just use something. So again, Slack for communication and file transfers. You can use the hackathon's Slack channel, or you can actually build your own workspace, so you can have more freedom to actually build your own channels. So yeah, but then use Slack. GitHub for version control. This is kind of a no-brainer because everyone uses GitHub for their projects, as in public projects, like ones in hackathons. They also offer private repositories now, just lately. So you can actually even make it private as well, so you don't have to actually show your code to other people if you don't want to. So yeah, GitHub. Sketch or InVision for design. Sketch is normally for Mac users, or InVision is normally for non-Mac users. They're pretty much the same tool. It depends on what you want to. It just depends on what operating systems you work on, and they're also free. If you another one that I forgot to mention, if you want a very, very simple tool for prototyping a UI, consider using Balsamiq. It's a more low fidelity um, mark, mock-up tools. So you don't necessarily have to care about the design, but just like the design. It's just about like the placement of your buttons and things like that. They have a very, very simplified UI to encourage you to prototype quickly. So yeah. And also, last but not least, for if you're here to build web apps, try React and Express. I know there's also React, Vue, Angular, but I would say if you want to just start, just use React as it's the most common one. Express for your backend for web apps. And if you want to build mobile apps, you can start with Android or you can go with React Native. Lately, a framework called Flutter has been gaining popularity, but I would say, unless you can find a mentor who actually knows a lot about Flutter, I would probably not try to use it because you won't get as much help from mentors if they are not familiar with it. And another tip would be not to wait until last minute. Don't always spare 1 or 2 hours before a hacking window ends and just freeze your code, stop implementing, start actually fixing bugs, making sure the happy path, or basically the path that you want to demo, to work. At least that's the priority first. Just keep on testing. Don't implement any more features near the end of the hacking session, because there's and it's almost likely that you would screw up your code base. And the last thing that you want is to have a working demo and then you add this one little feature and then everything breaks and you can't demo. That's the saddest thing that you can do to yourself. And I've done it before, so I know the feeling. Another one would be to remember to snooze off. Again, this is a 36-hour hackathon. Let's say you do take 7 or 8 hours of sleep. That still gives you plenty of time to actually still get to hack. So, and the benefit of actually sleep and actually have enough sleep is much bigger, right? And so, yeah, I would say get enough sleep. Hacking is a very brain-intensive activity, so you do need every last bit of brain capacity that you can to be able to hack something worthwhile. I know not a lot of people agree with this, but I would say, for the sake of hackathons, if you do actually want to use the time, like you don't plan to sleep full 7-8 hours, at least I would say it's 5 hours. That helps you at least get enough sleep and get you by by the end of the hacking session. Also sleep efficiently. Because of this virtual hackathon, you actually get to sleep on your own bed. You don't have to sleep on the sleeping bags or on the floor, or even sometimes on your desk. Sleep efficiently, sleep on a proper place, turn off any distractions. So, stop coding, stop chatting with people when you go to bed, because you don't have time for it. You actually want to, as soon as you feel tired, go and sleep, get 5 hours of sleep and get back again. But yeah, turn off any distractions, wear something comfortable. I remember when in one of my hackathons, I didn't bring my own I guess sleeping attire, or like my pajamas pretty much, and I had enough sleep, but I was super uncomfortable that I kept waking up, and yeah, it just messes up with my sleep, and in the end it's as if I didn't sleep at all. So it's really important. And last but not least, enjoy the experience. For hackathon, especially if this is your first hackathon, um, it would be a very successful hackathon for you if you actually can, one, learn and actually finish a project all at the same time on your first hackathon. But for most people, you can only get either one of those. Either you learn or you actually finish and compete. So you want to actually enjoy the experience, so you are more you have more motivation to actually attend more hackathons. That's when you actually get to learn both. And so yeah, I would say enjoy the experience. Don't push yourself too hard. You should draw a line between pushing yourself and having fun. Also explore mini events in announcement channel. Normally, they would put mini events or surprise events that for you to just distract yourself from work, and take a break, use it, and that's when you actually also get to hang out with other hackers as well, and it's really really fun. Ask a lot of questions. Again, hackathon, they're full of really really talented people, and so go and ask as many questions as you have to anyone. Yeah, and last but not least, shameless plug, check out Kotakode and ask your questions there. We do have mentors as well that we've specifically told them to monitor the site for any questions, and get you back the answers quickly. So if you have questions, put it on Kotakode, and yeah, we hope to actually address that question quickly as well. So yeah, I want to leave some time for questions. I think we do have some time. Maybe I can use 15 to 20 minutes for questions. I don't think I would use all of the time, but if you do have questions, please put it on the question comments. So yeah, feel free to ask questions. Let me just see if there is a question. Okay. Is this the right place to actually view questions or comments? Okay, I guess I'll leave another 30 seconds. If you do have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so there's one question from 123 Mr. Choi. What do you think is the major drawback from virtual hackathon? I mean, to be honest, I think I have not actually attended a virtual hackathon before, as in I've never been a participant in a virtual hackathon before, so it's really hard for me to tell. But I think from what I can imagine, the drawback from virtual hackathon would be, instead of actually having a face-to-face interaction with your fellow hackers and your mentors, you only get to do that over the chat room, and that for some people that might be more intimidating. For some people that might actually help them avoid social anxiety. So yeah, I would say maybe the drawback would be that, and I think the biggest drawback would be there's no free food. But yeah, that's what I think. But I do think that at the end of the day, it's about your project hacks. So regardless whether it's a physical hackathon or a virtual hackathon, as long as you can actually finish a project, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so Jacob Sadoy, what drew you to create Kotakode? This is a really interesting question. So I worked on Kotakode with former high school friends of mine. We went to Binabangsa school together, and and so Peter told me about his idea of trying to fix this problem of Indonesian developers not being able to learn from sites like Stack Overflow because they don't have enough English literacy, and sometimes they do get bullied or from asking really improper questions, as in English wise it's really hard to understand. So it was too intimidating to actually ask questions on Stack Overflow, and so some of them actually resorted to going to groups like Telegram or WhatsApp or Facebook groups. There's a dedicated Indonesian Facebook groups or Telegram groups for asking those kind of questions. But the experience is not as pleasant. Essentially, imagine you have just one WhatsApp group or one Telegram group for 14,000 members, and when you get to ask questions, and then at the same time 10 other people actually ask the same question at the same time as you, then your question would get pushed up and no one actually see your question, and then no one it never gets addressed. So and especially also in some groups, some Telegram groups, there's a lot of bullying happening, as in sometimes people who want to ask really simple questions, they're being bullied by others to say like, hey, why do you ask this stupid question? Just go and Stack Overflow it. Well, the reason why they came to ask because they couldn't understand it on Stack Overflow. So we knew that this was a big problem, and so Peter identified this problem and then asked me, hey, do you want to work on this? It started off as a purely fun project, but after we launched, we gained a lot of users, a lot of traffic, and we realized that, hey, this is actually a legit problem. And so that's what drew me to actually continue working on this as well. So yeah, good question. I really like it. So question from Brian Sumali. Can you tell us about a project that you enjoyed working on? I think for me is any project, any programming project is really fun for me. I find working on web projects or basically app development or software engineering projects even more rewarding for me. I also do enjoy, machine learning and AI stuff like that, but I find more satisfaction in actually building a software. And so that's the kind of project that I would do. I enjoy it. It's more like web programming projects and stuff like that. And for the type of projects that I enjoy working rather than tools, I like working on things that makes everyday things easier. So productivity tools. One of the projects that I built over the hackathon was a to-do list app where you can actually break down tasks one by one, and you can actually create a subtask. And in those subtasks, you can actually create another subtask. So it's like a tree of subtasks. The idea is to actually break down a really big task into a smaller subtask that can actually work and take action on. So that was one example of project that I've worked on during hackathon. So yeah, those kind of questions. Zainal Sumali, is Kotakode recruiting? Yes. So we are recruiting. In many different areas. We are especially looking for developers. We are also looking for marketing, and we do hire a lot of interns. So if you're interested, please go and talk to us, and ping us on our channel, and we'll get connected, and then we can talk to you more about it. Brian Sumali again. If you're a registered participant, oops, actually that's not a question. Sorry. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Can you tell us what project you work on? Are you a full-time at Kotakode? Currently, yes. I'm currently working full-time at Kotakode, but just this Monday, I'll be starting to work. I'm going to be working at Google for a software engineering role full-time, which means that for Kotakode, I'll be working part-time, and on the weekends, I'll basically work full-time. So yeah, I hope to actually continue working on Kotakode, because I think, like this is my baby since February, I guess. So I really, really want to keep working on this. Let's see, what word? Aditya Firmansha Putra. What were the challenges when creating a Kotakode? I think the challenges were because I think one of the most obvious challenges was because the fact that we were working remotely. So at the time when we started Kotakode, Peter was actually in Toronto, while I was in Vancouver. So there are about 3-hour time difference. So that was I guess not a major hurdle, but it was one of the problems that we had, basically synchronizing our work hours. And also, once we launch, there's also a lot of, I guess, problems, maintaining a project. So building a project is one thing, maintaining a project and actually, getting user feedback and actually implementing user feedback is another thing. And that was also quite a challenge for us, because we want to also fit, add new features to an existing features without breaking the code and stuff like that. So yeah, that was also another experience for me. I came from a hacking background, as I said. So I made things, but I only have a few experience on maintaining a project. So that was something new to me, but I do enjoy, the experience, and I find myself learning a lot from this experience. 1, 2, 3, Mr. Choi. Again, can you help with SEO? Me and Peter, we just learned SEO from Kotakode as well, because we wanted to make it like Stack Overflow. Essentially, when you type in questions, the first thing that would come out would be Kotakode questions. So yeah, we learned a lot through the process. And yeah, I mean, if you do have questions about SEO, please feel free to drop by and then drop and ask your questions. We are not experts, but at least I think we can help. Thanks, Jacob, for the thank you. Yeah, let's see. Again, 1, 2, 3, Mr. Choi. Difference between hackathon and a startup. For me, I think whenever someone asks me a question, so what is Kotakode? What are you working on at Kotakode? What is Kotakode? If I want to hype myself up, I would call it a startup. If I want to, but most of the time, just to make it less intimidating, I would mention it as my side project to my friends, just because it's less fancy and try to be humble. So yeah, but I do think that they share the same idea. I think startup though, a hackathon, you only focus on one thing, which is prototyping, and you want to make things possible. But in a startup, there's much more than that. You want to also learn how to grow your user, and you have a lot of other things you have to talk to users, and then also make sure you actually launch and talk to a lot of partners and stuff like that. So I guess I would say startup would be a more generic term, like a bigger task to do. And you could say that hackathon is kind of like a subset of this startup. Like the hackathon would be like prototyping, product development. So yeah, that's what I actually think the difference is. Any more questions? We do have about maybe 3 more minutes for more questions. I'll leave about 30 seconds if there's any more questions. You can just say that I have questions, you're writing it, and then continue. I'll just wait until you actually finish your question. But at least let me know that if you have questions so we don't waste everyone's time. That was a really, really great questions, by the way. Thanks a lot for asking those questions. I really, really enjoyed actually doing this kind of Q&A too. So it seems like those are the only questions left. So I think, yeah, again, I want to say thank you so much for listening, and thank you for those questions as well. I really, really do hope that you enjoy this hacking session. I really, I also want to encourage a lot more people to actually join hackathons because of its impact on I guess, my skill build development. And it's a lot of fun too, to be honest. And yeah, I hope that you get something out of it. And if you do have questions about Kotakode or about, I guess, career in general, or you have software engineering questions, if you want to share your projects, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to actually answer your questions and get connected. So yeah, last slide would be, who's ready for hack this weekend? Oh, actually, I didn't share my screen, but yeah, that will be my last question of the day. And again, thank you for listening, and I want to pass it back to Brian.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for telling us about your experience. It's really valuable, and we really appreciate telling us what works, what doesn't, and including the offer to use Kotakode as a valuable resource as well. So as well as answering all our questions. So that's all for the talks today. But we have more keynotes and workshops lined up tomorrow. So you can look at Instagram, and we'll also update you on Slack. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow.